let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaining and everything in its orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it.
Oh,
James, what are we talking about?
well, I thought today it might be a good opportunity to talk about the skinny stuff.
The skinny stuff?
Here's how I say it. We have a lot of conversations about how, as gainers, sometimes it feels like we don't really put ourselves in fat shoes enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because so many of us start off skinny, we see ourselves as skinny people even when we're fucking 400 pounds, but we're not really. And we've had enough episodes now where we can acknowledge that being fat in the world is a political thing, and there is a reality to being fat in the world that many of us have an abrupt understanding of, or realization of rather, because we just weren't expecting it. We're still in our skinny minds.
Yeah, fair.
And I don't know, I think there is a real transformation in someone, because I think we all have that moment where we can look at someone and think, oh, you're a fat person. When I look at you, I see a fat person. And it's not because they look fat, but because they exude fat energy. There's something about them that is fat. And I think it's this acceptance of self, a realization of who and what they are, a way they conduct themselves in the world, a way they carry themselves. And similarly, with skinny people. And I think this is where you get that narrative of looking at someone who's larger and thinking, oh yeah, they used to be thin, because they haven't quite realized that they can't wear that, or they walked into a situation presenting themselves with skinny energy, but they're fat, and that's just not going to work. So I think it's an interesting concept. There's some truth to it. There's a lot of bias, but I think we need to start to unpick it and unpack it. And we spend so much of this podcast talking about the fat stuff that I thought it might be an interesting change of pace to look at the skinny stuff.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, the fat stuff is sometimes, a little more fun to talk about.
Just a scooch. Just a skerrick. Just a little bit. But I want to query with you, and I know we've talked about this a bit, but how much of your life, percentage-wise, were you objectively skinny?
Well, I'm almost 40, and I started to put some weight on at 26. So prior to that, I had been a skinny child, a skinny preteen, a skinny teenager, a skinny young adult. Now, at 26, I was by no means fat, at least not by gainer standards. I was gay fat by that point. I was certainly considered fat by my gay peers, but true weight gain, significant weight gain, didn't start until about 33.
Gotcha. So relatively the latter portion of your life, say around 60-70%, markedly skinny.
Yes.
In the more recent years, you become fatter. So I started gaining around 21, and I'm around 30 now. So, yeah, I know I'm not the fattest person. Fuck, don't at me.
Neither am I.
But I am objectively fat. BMI says I'm fat. My doctor certainly thinks I'm fat. My family think I'm fucking immobile. Jesus. The commentary and the feedback, I mean, really, if you heard what they had to say, they'd think I was 2 steps away from the grave. But that's family. You love family, don't you?
That's just family's way. I got kind of lucky that it seems that there's a trend in my family, and I call this like our family name spread, because it seems like at about 25, 26, that's when weight starts to like actually accumulate. And so even though I have put on significant gains, both my sisters have too, but they also have children, so they did push children out of themselves. So, but it's not like either one of them have ever snapped back to their original weight. So, so if they single me out, I mean, of course, I could be like, oh, well, you too. Although that would feel really, shitty, because they did give birth.
So look, I suppose for me, it's the latter third of my experience. I've been on that weight gain journey, and to query for you, when you started gaining, did you Were there things that you knew like right away that you would need to adapt or change in order to gain more successfully?
Right away, no, because it almost seems like I feel like when you decide you're going to throw yourself into this, it feels like you just slightly overeat and you're going to balloon. And, we've talked ad nauseum about how that doesn't actually happen for everybody. Some people are lucky enough that all they have to do is throw an extra 500 calories on their diet and they just expand at an incredible rate. Um, that's what I was thinking was going to happen to me. And boy, was I sorely disappointed.
Mm.
And it's just the hardest thing has just been adapting to including the amount of calories necessary to actually put on a significant amount of weight in a quick time frame. And I'm just not one of those. I would give anything. Wait, how many times have we said I'd give anything to have that kind of appetite? I'd give anything to be, that ravenous and have that kind of stomach capacity. I just don't. And that was something that was a bit of a rude awakening. So I'm still trying to adapt to the correct way of making this happen, or at least the way that works for me.
No, I totally get it. There was no one to really tell me anything when I was skinny. I was very much on my own on that front. And I think when I give critique to how we as a community treat the construct of gaining, like you can't just tell people to drink oil. Like I was 21, I was a poor student, I was like 100 pounds, and I just didn't know jack fucking shit about anything. Like you can't tell me binge on junk food. I can't afford junk food. I'm living on noodles. Like help me with this. So things of that nature. That's why I sort of lament that experience because I wish that there was more support, more encouragement. Because sometimes I think to myself, if I knew then what I know now with cooking, I feel like I could have been so much bigger. But that's all very
Well,
good.
and then there's not much of a trend among gainers to actually like show the work. You know what I'm saying? Like to like some gainers do. They will post like everything that they've eaten that day or like everything that they've gotten in a single food order, which helps me because I'm a visual learner. And if I can visualize how much food should be consumed in a single sitting, like if you tell me, like seriously, if you were to tell me you, in order to put 5,000 calories into your body, eat 3 cheeseburgers, 1 Big Mac, 2 nuggets, and 2 large fries. That gives me a quantity that I can work towards. And that gives me a visual picture of what I'm supposed to do. I am one of those people who like you tell me something in a recipe is like ounces of this and ounces of that. I can't picture it in my head. I have no fucking idea what 30 grams of protein looks like. When I was trying to put on muscle and they were like, eat 30 grams of protein a day. Well, what the fuck is 30 grams of protein? Is that 2 chicken breasts? Is
Hmm.
that 3 steaks? Like, give me a visual to work with.
100. There needs to be more genuine support. And I think this harkens back to episodes on mentorship, episodes on the gainer diet, episodes on all of these things where we talk about what people need and we just need more of it. So hey, when I first started gaining, I knew that I needed to eat more, but I also knew that I needed to be able to afford to eat more. So when I was at uni, I don't think I really put on that much weight. It was a teeny tiny amount. I think I got up to 115 max, and it was only after that when I got a full-time job and I could afford to eat and live life that I also had the freedom to like learn how to cook nice things and learn how to buy my groceries and plan ahead of time and do all that good stuff. It just takes time and experience. But I want to ask, what do you feel has been the most unexpected change that you've had to make that has led to more growth?
Honestly, the one thing that actually seems to help me move past certain hurdles and then keep the weight on is the expensive supplements. I know that a lot of people can't really afford just to do $50 on a case of Boost, but sometimes it's literally been the only thing that's worked. As far as like unexpected changes that I've had to make, I guess just learning that people are going to refer to me a certain way now because just the other day at work, right? One of the housekeeping ladies who sees me so many times a week or whatever, completely unprompted, I get on the elevator and she's next to me and she just turns to me, she goes, you put on weight. And I'm like, and I thought in my head, I'm like, how do I want to respond to this? Like, if I say thank you, Like that might kind of like weird her out for a second. And this is somebody that I have to see a lot of the time. So I actually defaulted to the whole insulting thing. And I was like, gee, thanks. And then she felt like shit. But I still think that like people might think that's mean, but at the same time, it's like, why would you go up to somebody totally unprompted? You know, like, no, I didn't even say good morning to her, and she just turns and says this to me. I took it as a means to like teach her like it's not okay to just blurt that out to people, you know.
I mean, girl, gainers do that to fat celebrities all the fucking time. Matt McGorry.
Well, you know, well, okay, they're famous though. Who am I? I'm just the dude who comes in to like fill in when there's no other help. Like,
I mean, I get it, but I don't know. I think it's very like, how long is a piece of string? You know, like
yeah,
the comment is people with random commentary, like, but at the end of the day, you don't know. You don't know how that's going to make someone feel. You don't know how they're going to respond to it. And, you know, for her, she clearly had her like internal monologue going, this is fine. Gainers, when they comment on a celebrity's photo and they happen to have gained weight, you know, that in their internal monologue told them that was fine.
yeah,
I think that's maybe its own episode. But I hear what you're saying. You've had to learn almost how to play the fat game because they
yeah.
don't know that you're a gainer who's willingly and intentionally becoming fat. They don't know that you're turned on by this. So for her, it's sort of like, oh, well, he must want to cover it up. He must want to lose that weight. He's probably thinking about dieting, not overeating. And when he is overeating, maybe he's got an emotional problem, you know? But you're absolutely right. I think what I've found, especially in some of my more recent roles, because I am who I am, I'm not afraid to make jokes about my weight. I'm not afraid to have a big lunch. I'm not afraid to do all that. Also because, like, I get the fat hunger so hard. Fat hunger so hard. Don't tell me lunch is delayed. Don't ask if I'm going to wait till 1 o'clock. I'm not waiting till 1 o'clock. And people don't challenge me on that front. They're like, oh, shit, he's not waiting till 1 o'clock. He's going to eat me if I don't let him eat.
So you guys actually go to lunch with coworkers. That's not, I mean, yeah, there are plenty of American workers who do that, but I feel by and large, most people opt to do lunch on their own. And like me, I just get Postmates. So
I think most people do get lunch on their own, but I think certain offices especially, they try to drive a social culture, you know, because we're a family and we all work together.
yeah,
And
but
like,
what if you don't like any of your coworkers?
I don't know, drown them, push them out a window. I don't know what do normal people do. But no, I'm not against having lunch with people because obviously I love a chat. I love a chat, and I'm fine if you don't love a chat because I'll put my music in. It's fine. Doesn't have to be a problem. But I'm not against social moments like having lunch with someone. I love a chat. I'll have a chat. The chat is totally fine. I find I do get comments from people where there's like this almost not reverence, but one of my more long-term roles, and in fact, this is the one I had right before you and I connected, Tim. I had an interim manager, and you know, we were very drunk because this was that type of place where everyone was encouraged to drink, and we all were quite drunk at that point, having a laugh.
I would have loved to work somewhere like that. I've never worked anywhere.
I mean, it was fun. It was fun, you know, good laugh. But, you know, there was a moment where, and I cannot remember what it was, but because she was not a large person by any stretch of the imagination, but she certainly had a small amount of curve to her, I would say. And, you know, she was getting spun around by someone like, woo. And, you know, the sort of skirt was coming up, and she had this moment of looking a little bit like, oh, don't, you know, and, you know, I complimented her on what she was wearing. I said, I think you look fantastic, and I hope you know that, you know, you look really great, you know? And she made a comment to me. She's like, sometimes I'm really envious of just how confident you are in your body. And, you know, I know that people can hear that comment and think, well, that's shady. I admire how confident you are because if I was you, I'd want to fucking kill myself. But, like, she herself being
a bigger person, she was basically saying, I wish that I could have your level of confidence. I wish that I could walk around and not give a flying fuck what anybody thinks.
Exactly. And in one of my more recent roles, you know, one of the girls on the team who I was probably closer with, similar situation. She was not a skinny person, right? And I'm not exactly going out of my way to be like, us fat fucks need to stand together. But, you know, making that kind of comment to her was like, oh, girl, I don't want the small thing, Flush. I want a bigger thing. Do you want to come with me to get a bigger thing? She's like, yes. And I'm like, cool, come on, let's go get some food. It wasn't me saying, hey, Chungus, come and get some more pig slop. I was just saying, I feel like the situation they're trying to embroil us in with this poke bowl salad sitch, it's not for me. Would you like an opportunity to out and get something more sizable? And then we did. And it was great. So I feel like there is a real boon to owning your sense of self in a way that doesn't have to be a detraction, you know?
Mhm.
That's kind of it. We live in a world where we are seen as fat, whether or not we see ourselves as fat. Your response to the situation was to have to put on a certain character because she would have understood it otherwise. For me, I feel like I'm in a position for myself, with my confidence, with my words, to branch out into the whole, oh no, I'm chill about being a fat boy.
Well, as I had said, I think many episodes ago, just being called big guy for the first time, was like people really see me as a bigger person now, and still by society standards, I'm still that mid-sized sedan. I'm not a full SUV yet. Like I'm not at the point where people are like actively mocking, but like they recognize that I take up more space now.
Well, episode on categories. Remember, you're not mid-size because you're not in between. You are small fat. I am a small
Yes.
fat. And in fact, the pair of us are burgeoning on being mid-fat by that argument. I understand by American standards, by the scope of the gainer community, we are perceived as on the much smaller end of the scale. Totally fine, because we are.
It's fascinating the amount of metrics that we use to measure things. It's like in gay world, I'm a whale. I'm just, oh my God, you're so fucking fat. In gay world. In gainer world, oh my God, you're so skinny, you need to get bigger. In regular world, like I said, we're skinny fat or whatever. These metrics, like I get why people get so confused as to where they fit in on all these spectrums.
It can be hard. But again, I think that's why these concepts are important. We need to talk about the categories. We need to understand on the smaller end of the scale, we do still carry a lot of privilege because we can appear like we're dirty bulking, like, oh, if I wore the right shirt or held myself the right way, the puffiness of my arm could almost be a muscle, as opposed to just a flabby arm, you know?
With winter coming, if I put on a hoodie and then my leather jacket, but that's like a lot of padding right there. You almost couldn't even like tell what my body shape would be underneath it.
100. In terms of the most surprising or unexpected change I've made, I think it is that sense of just owning it and moving forward with it. Because certainly when I first started gaining, I was like, this is for me and for me alone. No one else will ever hear about this. No one else will ever know about this. And now I'm here co-hosting a fucking podcast talking about this. So, famous last words.
And I can't believe that I didn't mention unexpected thing. Confidence came out of nowhere. It feels like it came so out of left field because when Skinny Tim went out, he was like, I was so critical of everything that I looked like, from my face to my body to everything. And now I'm just like, I don't fucking care. This is what I fucking look like. And if you don't like it, look over there.
Oh, 100%. I made this point to someone else not too long ago. If you ever have a moment where you think, fuck, I'm the only big person at this party, there are a lot of people out here we've discovered that are like secretly into fatties. And if you are the only fat bitch at a party, all of their eyes are on you alone, honey, because you are the only meal, the only full course banquet in a room full of appetizers, aperitifs.
You're the donut around the all the celery sticks.
Exactly. So get into it. But no, you're absolutely right. And also just feeling like me. I feel like in so many ways when I look at the James I was, sadly at this stage, the majority of my life, miserable, hateful, hurtful, so self-loathing, self-negative, all of that stuff. And it's like,
one thing that I do when I look back on old pictures of me, when I was really skinny, I don't think that I'm ugly. Like, I still think I was beautiful. In fact, I really am like, boy, if I had known how pretty I actually was,
might have taken out the modeling.
Why didn't I do more with it? Why didn't I open more doors for myself? Why did I, think that I was this olive oil, gangly, like ugly monster in the corner? Like, damn, did I miss out on an opportunity However, I still think that I am beautiful. I'm not as beautiful as I was when I was young, but I'm also now more me than I ever was when I was young.
Mm, no, I definitely agree with that. Like I often look at older pictures of myself and okay, this might sound a bit like weird or ritualistic, but like every time I see an old picture of myself, if I'm flicking through Facebook or even as a joke showing someone like this is what I used to look like, I will always whisper, I love you in my mind. Because I never said that to myself growing up, and no one was fucking doing that for me. And I'm sat here like that child, that younger version of me, the older operating system, she's still in the backlog there somewhere. And she should not be disrespected because operating in that body, she got me through the day. She kept me alive. Maybe she wasn't doing the best, maybe she didn't feel great about herself, but I love her because without that person, I would not be here now. And I have to love myself. Sometimes I feel like as gainers, we experience this and we have this desire to run away from our old self. We have this desire to put them in a box, lock them up, as if it's their fault. But it's not. It was a part of you being who you had to be for that point in time.
Yeah.
We love that person for who they were because they are still a part of us. And we thank them. You can rest. Let me take over now, you know? And I think that's a much kinder way to treat our old vision of ourselves.
I agree.
But I do want to say, as former skinny folk, we we experience a different challenge to gaining than those who maybe have the more suitable genetics or have grown up in larger bodies. Look, controversial question. Do you think gainers who have grown up bigger or gainers who, just because they've got the genetics, they gain more easily, do you think they underestimate the effort we have to put in order to gain weight?
I mean, they might that because, like I said, some people seem to be blessed with the ability to only add, maybe an extra 500 or 1,000 calories to their current diet, and the gains come on very quickly. They may take for granted that it doesn't happen for other people, or you run into a gainer who says like, "I'm never satiated. I'm always hungry. I'm always like wanting to eat." They may take for granted the fact that I don't have that impulse. I wish I did, but I don't know if they're doing it, consciously. I think it's probably just what you experience in yourself. So yeah, that might be a little naive to how difficult it can be for people like you and me to actually put weight on and make it stick.
Hmm. I feel like I've known gainers, especially as I've like gone through the gaining journey and I was as small as I was and I've grown. I feel like I've had people who've made comments like, I would expect you to be bigger by now. Or I've seen other people do this and grow. And the inference is like, why aren't you doing the same? So I think that can be very hurtful. And I've expressed before, like I do have trauma in the past. Like I've left the community before because the feedback I was getting was I felt really hurtful. There was a lot of judgment, a lot of expectation that just because of how I am with my body, I'm not going to meet that. That doesn't devalue me. And it's hard because as a community, I think we often lift up negging as an appropriate way of encouraging.
Encouraging. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I don't know who to go to like rewrite that coding.
Because that you see so many, there are a lot of gainers who really get off on the humiliation aspect of it, and that's fine. And I know a lot. I mean, girl, I'm in the leather community. I know so many people that get off on humiliation, and that's great for them. But it's like it doesn't work for every single person. Like it doesn't work for me. And every once in a blue moon, because I've had some of your experiences, like every once in a blue moon, I will get a comment like, "Oh, you need to be bigger," or I think I like one of the first TikToks I put out was like, new TikTok trend, put a picture up and have the comments rate you 1 to 10, and someone had scored me low and said, nah, you're too small for me still. Okay, fine. Did you really have to tell me? Like, was it absolutely necessary for you to tell me that? Like you can just give your rating and then keep your mouth shut or just not even rate. How about
Yeah.
that? If I don't meet your standard, why do you even bother?
It's interesting when people perceive you giving them permission to say something that they wouldn't normally say, like how many people take that opportunity on the grounds of, oh, well, you said you wouldn't get hurt, you said you wouldn't be, and it's just like, mate, you You knew what this was. Like, I think
Yeah.
you very intentionally took the chance to get in with a jab. And I think it also signifies how many people in the world really do look for opportunities to say something unkind, you know?
One of the most bizarre ones I got was I posted up like a side by side, like from 10 years ago, and not this year, but I think it was maybe 2 years ago. I posted what I was looking like in 2020, and someone commented, "I liked you better skinny." So I immediately commented back, like, "Then why are you here? Why are you following me if that's what you prefer? Because I'm not going back to that. I think I've made it fairly clear that I have no intention of returning to that former body. So I feel like you're wasting both of our time by being here."
You know, there is a lesson to be learned that you don't quite know how many people in the world really do sit on negative feelings for you and will hold on to them until they feel there is a moment where they have permission to give that to you. And they will, as I say, turn around and go, well, no, it's because you asked for it. And well, look at this situation.
I mean, I suppose you are kind of, I mean, I hate to say it like this. I suppose you are kind of asking for it because you put it out online. Like, you are opening yourself up to criticism, but at the same time, like, does the other person have to take the opportunity? Like, I'm not handing you like me on a silver platter saying, "Please rip me to shreds." Like,
Like carte blanche, come and let me have it. But I
mhm.
think it's an opportunity. And I do think as well, like if you have the opportunity to give someone feedback, why say something that's untrue, unkind, hurtful? Why not find a way to say it that actually is a critique rather than a criticism? A criticism is you're fat and I hate you. A critique
Yeah.
is, do you know what? I think you could be bigger, but I know you said you don't like using powder. I think if you started using the gainer powder, I think that could be the boost you need. And you know what? That's a fair critique. That's
And
a
that could be helpful advice. Maybe that was the one thing that was missing out of your equation.
like it's all about your and it is a choice on how you do things. It is a choice on how you speak to people, your choice of words, your choice of intention, And I find it just interesting, like, again, as being skinny people who've gained, as people who've gained slowly. We're here right now on this podcast talking about it, but like, you think about every other medium of gaining that really gets has been promoted in the past, other podcasts, or you think of well-known gainers that people like to follow or listen to. How many of those people are slow gainers?
I mean, in retrospect, most of them, because I remember what people used to look like when they were 21 on Beefy Frat, and to see them now, it's like, okay, that was almost a 20-year progress. There was someone on the cruise that I pointed out to you, and I was like, I think that might be my body goal for the future. I think that this is kind of what I
Yep.
would be happy settling into. And I had known about this particular gainer since the days of old Beefy Frat, and remembered him when he was a twig. And to see go from the, I mean, obviously it probably came in little spurts here and there where he could put on weight kind of quickly and then plateau and then another spurt, and like, so I think seeing that particular gainer made me realize, like, I can make this happen. And he had been dedicatedly gaining since 21. I've only been doing it since 32.
Yeah.
So, he's had significantly longer to reach that. And then when we talk to SF Gut Muscle, his growth has just been over decades. He wasn't always that big. He started off at, I think, what he said, 160 or 175. And look at him now. And that was like, what, 30 years ago?
Hmm. I think it's an interesting conversation on sort of like speed of gaining and the, no pun intended, weight and value we put on people who gain. And that is an episode we want to do. We want to do an episode where we can interview someone who is a fast gainer. Someone who maybe their growth has all come on in the space of a year and they gained 100 pounds. We want to be able to talk about what was that transformation actually like? What was that experience like?
Yeah.
What is your family like, your genetics, your experience? Because honestly, as the skinny, experienced gainer, I want eyes. I want eyes on the genetics. I want to look at the science. I didn't care about this shit before, but all of a sudden I'm a chemist, I'm a biochemist, I'm a biologist, I'm a phlebotomist. I don't fucking know. You know what I mean?
Phlebotomists are people who access veins.
Yeah, yeah, I'll chew on his veins. I don't know. If it helps with that, you know. What is the most prominent habit you've had to unlearn in order to encourage your growth?
I'm still struggling with it today. Eating more. My appetite. My appetite is the bane of my existence because, like I've said in previous episodes, I don't know what it is about me, but sometimes, like, even if I'm hungry and I need to do something else or I'm focused on something else, I will ignore those hunger pains. And I just have the weirdest freaking relation. I love food. I am a foodie. It's not that I have a fear of food or a fear of eating food or any of that stuff. It's just the consistency of appetite. And the more that I've gotten to know my mother's personality as an adult, it's like, oh shit, she has the exact same struggle with food. She's not intentionally trying to gain weight or anything, but like she has a difficult relationship with it. And then I found out that my father has something of a difficult relationship with it. So it's like, I don't know if it's genetic or if it's just a behavior that I observed from them and incorporated into my own. I wish that we could talk to a sociologist or a psychologist about all this.
If there is a sociologist or psychologist listening and you would like to be on the podcast, you can reach out to us at thiccradio@gmail.com and we will gladly have you on to offer us free counseling.
Well, I mean, that might not entice them, but
yeah, give us
it would be nice to just unpack some of this stuff with like an actual trained licensed professional who has done the 8 to 12 years worth of med school to like get all this information down, because I find the psychology behind all of this fascinating, but you don't see anyone actually in that field talking about it.
No, 100%. And I think we come back to the whole gaining is not just gaining is being fat. And to be fat in the universe, and fat in the universe, it means we live in a society that is systemically fat phobic. We all have problems with food. We all have problems with our health, with our body, with our shape, with our size, with everything. We are all constantly unpacking everything. Like growing up and realizing that my family is fat phobic. Why did it not matter that there were 5 kids and there were leftovers? Why couldn't we clean everything off on the plate and have leftovers? Because you had your one plate. There's no need for you to have another, is there? Why would you want to have another plate?
And see, I grew up with the opposite mentality. My parents, even though they were not immigrants at all, because my mother was like 5th generation by that point, they still maintained, and I don't know if I don't want to say it's entirely an immigrant thing. Maybe it's just like like when you're poor, it's a thing, because it was always about eat everything that's on your plate.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, eat everything that's on the plate because we were very, very poor, but there was no leftovers. And I think, again, there were 5 of us, kids,
yeah,
parents. Like,
that's 7 people to feed.
There wasn't those resources to go around. And again, I think in later years when there were more opportunities, it wasn't like there was more of an indulgence. It almost became like, well, why would you indulge more? If you can survive on one plate, why would you possibly want to have more? And there have been times where like I would go back for a family dinner. This is not enough. Or I've sampled my mother's cooking and just been like, look at this absolutely sad something on a plate. And I would have gobbled this up as a kid. But now that I know that I can make my own things and make it better and nicer, this is really something I'm having to step myself down to subject myself to be here with my family. It's interesting how your relationship with food changes, your relationship with people changes. Like I would say for me, the most prominent habit I've had to unlearn is my habit of resistance. And in fact, I encountered this just the other night. My partner and I, we've discovered a new Chinese place that we like, and he's not a gainer, but he doesn't mind eating. And it's like we will order things with the idea of like, oh, we'll do this for a dinner, and actually there'll be enough that we can have leftovers because it is a lot. But then it's like sometimes he'll say, oh, and I also want this extra thing. And I had a moment where I was like, well, why do you want that? I'm not gonna get this. Why do you want this? Do you need this? And he challenged me on it, and I was genuinely stumped because I was like, I'm doing that thing. Why is that still in my head?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we really do underestimate like the longevity of trauma, and we really do underestimate the longevity of ideals in us and how much energy and effort it takes to unpack things, the way that things can still sit inside of us when we're not even thinking about it. Like, do you ever have that moment where something comes up or a thought comes to mind and you think to yourself, 20-year-old Tim would have thought this or said this or done this. Why is that rattling around up in here now?
Just things stick with you. Things stick with you.
Sometimes I wonder to myself, like when we think about the purpose of transformation, like, and the importance of living in that reality, it is not just to facilitate the truth of who we are now, but also to very intentionally pack away and beat down some really old nasty habits, and trying to really put the lid on that and
Yeah.
seal that box up real tight. What is the best piece of advice you would give a skinny gainer desperate to gain the pounds?
Oh God, at this point, I feel like what I really would say is like if it's not happening quickly, don't get depressed. Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't think that you're somehow defective or that you're not doing it the right way, because I don't believe there is a right way to do it. There's only the way that works for you. So you got to be comfortable with it happening at whatever pace it's happening. And you may plateau, like I was at a plateau for a year, and then I was on another one for like 8 months. It sucks because there is, like I've mentioned in previous episodes, this jealousy factor that can rise up in you when you see that other people seem to have an easier time with it. But I feel like we're all going to get there eventually. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to take being 45 and my metabolism crashing. I don't know if I'm going to have to like injure my knee or something and be stuck like sitting down for the next 5 years. I don't know. But I have made peace with the fact that it's going to take as long as it's going to take. And that is the advice that I would give. Make peace with it will happen. It's probably not going to happen in the timeline you want, but you'll get there.
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give, similar to what you've said about not stressing yourself out, is to truly take the time to figure out how to gain for yourself and for yourself only. As gainers, we do this, we lean into the community, we lean into the love and the validation and the support for two good reasons. One, we're not getting it anywhere else, and two, it feels fucking amazing. Why wouldn't we? But I do think we get to a point where we've maybe leaned on it a little bit too much, and we don't have enough of love just for us to us. And I know for me, my periods of positive mental health have been my periods of greatest growth. And obviously I've still got a long way to go, and I'm fine with that. But I have found, and especially as I've spoken to gainers I've known over the years, they have all said as time goes on, your pace is increasing bit by bit. So just you hoes watch out. By the time I hit 400, it'll be exponential. I'll be 1,000 pounds the week next. But, until such a time, I would like to encourage you, sweet, gentle, slender, for now, gainer, find the time and space to love on yourself as a priority, to love on your gains, romance your own body. Take time to fondle your fat as much as possible and, don't wank. Find ways to love on yourself. Get, either, baby oil or the really good moisturizer and just spend some time massaging your belly, massaging your thighs. Because, one, it's going to feel great. And two, you're going to stumble on what I stumbled on, and that's going to be you're going to discover stretch marks, fat deposits. You're going to discover you have love handles long before someone points them out to you. You're going to discover dimples in your thighs. You're going to discover all these fantastic things about your body that you would have never have known if you hadn't taken the time to just love on yourself. Tim, baby, do you feel like there's anything we haven't touched on here yet?
I think one other piece of advice that I might give, although I don't know if this is controversial or not, but kind of enjoy, if you are skinnier or slender or the weight gain is not super pronounced, I would honestly say enjoy it while it lasts too, because there are going to be certain things that you'll be considered too fat to be acceptable in or to do. And I don't know if this is a great example, but when I was still slender and I knew that I was going to go down the route of gaining, but I hadn't really started yet, and I needed a fat fix, there was a chubby guy that I would hook up with because he did not like bigger men. He wanted someone slender, skinny, and I fit that profile at the time. So even though I wasn't getting to enjoy fat on my own body, I was reveling in enjoying his fat. So perhaps, if you find yourself in a similar situation where you get the chaser tag put on you and you get to enjoy the fat of an extremely chubby man, enjoy that, because that could potentially go away. Not all chubby guys like to be with other chubby guys. So
Oh, 100%. You know, it needs to be said, and I think we touch on this every time we talk to encouragers or admirers, non-fat people in our community. They are very valid, and all bodies need to be found valid in the gainer community because some thin people want to be fat, some fat people are chasing the thin people. It's all fine, but we need to find a place of reverence for ourselves where we are right now, which is how Tim and I, being intermediate bodies, bodies where we've made some progress, we're not all the way there yet, can love on ourselves and find ourselves sexy as we are. Doesn't mean we're ready to sit here and stay here and call it quits now, but we know we put in the work and we feel good. And bitch, we look good. You look fantastic. And
you know, I was at work, and of all places to think of yourself as attractive, because God, I work in an unsexy field, but to, you know, go into the bathroom and catch myself in the mirror and thinking, wow, my hair looks good today, my skin looks good today, I like the scrubs I've got on, the good colors on me, I look damn good today.
That's
which Skinny Tim never did that. Skinny Tim would look in the mirror and go, oh God, it's like polishing a turd, why bother? And then just walk out of the bathroom.
Yeah, Skinny James never had a good thing to say about himself. And you know what? Fatter James has a lot of compliments for himself these days. But listen, I think that brings us to the end of another episode here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a good review. If you liked this episode, the podcast, or just us in general, share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and BeefyFrat at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and BeefyFrat at ThiccyMouse. You can also look us up on TikTok at Thicc Radio, or our website at www.podpage.com/Thicc Radio. And if you want to submit any questions or ideas for episodes, you can reach us at thiccradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, fats.
Bye, fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Anchor app podcast produced by Stannnum and Thicky Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by stannnum.
Our artwork is provided by Lokitu.
Our theme song is provided by Body by Cream.